I think what motivates me and my philosophy behind, I mean, I love to paint. I love to work. There's lots of reasons for that. Some of them are personal, and some of them are just the joy of creating something that never has existed. I think the biggest challenge is in science when the scientists tell us that the universe is beyond our imagination. That stretches me a long ways. And then Mark Twain talking about the last frontier was the mind, you know, and different things like that. So it's those are like challenges to me, those different aspects. And then there's the personal reasons and the feelings that I get of creating things sometimes bring up just an abundance of joy. We're so far out of the town in here, it's like that Clayton just gives it a name. I've been working in the arts for a long time. Although at one time I was a railroad conductor. I was 23 years old, and I got promoted to conductor on the railroad for the Santa Fe, and that lasted a little while. And at the same time I was doing murals. I was under an apprenticeship with William Radley, and I was auditing some classes at the college, taking figure drawing and things like that, and still working on the railroad. And we were doing these huge paintings. I was his apprentice. And he kept telling me, we're going to have to make a decision sooner or later. You're going to have to paint, or you're going to have to work on the railroad. What's it going to be, you know? And so I believe I made the right decision. I'm pretty happy with it. I know he'd be real excited about a lot of the things that's been going on the last few years. I'm sure of it. I mean, I'm taking right off on everything that he showed me and taught me. That's for. This is a titanium base paint here, a ground, and also with lead white and turpentine and linseed oil. And that works real well. It'll dry flat and chalky, and then after the final coat there is applied, why I'll have to put a thin wash of turpentine and linseed oil across the mural, so that it will absorb that, and then it'll take the paint and the glazes much better when it's all, when the colors start going in. There's going to be almost a total of 6 to 8 coats of different paint in different areas. So you have to build it up slowly. Now this is just the final ground, and it will also be used as a underpaint too. It's like I was saying, it's like the beginning and the end of the ground. The ground is a pretty good process. It's rabbit skin glue underneath the white here, and then 2 coats of white. And that's a real important process for an oil painting, because otherwise the paint will start to crack. That's one of the problems with oil painting, is you have to watch what processes you're using and what colors. And then the colors too are, some colors fade that are out today too, so you have to watch what chemicals are made with to make make sure that they're going to last. This is that linen. It's just a fine surface. It's one of the finest surfaces that I've ever used. It's actually a portrait canvas, and we had it shipped from back east for this project. What I'm putting in is I'm putting in a painterly type sketch that's going to give me all the guidelines of for the form once I start to apply the color, and that's really going to help once all the details start coming together. Actually, all this painting, very little of it will even show through. Probably, I'd say less than 5% of this. It will just be touches of it poking through when it's when we have a complete painting. But this will be so helpful in making this piece, appear to be real. And the ideas are the hardest thing to come up with. I think the foremost challenge was to be able to try to portray a community with the traditional values that Cupertino has, and still be able to come across with a contemporary movement, and then also come up with a view for the future. I'm kind of a history bug myself. I like to find out why things are the way they are, and that has influenced me artistically. Cupertino is certainly a different entity in its own, although it's from the same regional area that I am, and that in itself may have helped with the rolling hills and then the farmlands. This area that I live in here used to be much like Cupertino, where it had the open fields and our agriculture, which has disappeared from the whole Bay Area. So we all have come through a lot of changes in the past years, and of course Cupertino being in sort of the best of two worlds of at the same time held on to some of its heritage and still been a forefront runner in the contemporary world. In the beginning, there was, there must have been about 10 or 20 thumbnail sketches. As soon as I heard about it, I sat down and I did some real, just quick line sketches, like almost kids would draw in 2 or 3 minutes. If I was going to do this project, what would I do? And then what that does is that simulates a shape and a form in my head. And then I go out into the world which happened to be Cupertino, and look around for that shape and form that's already germinating in a creative way to take place, and then I photograph it. I like to work in black and white because it takes the contrast in nice shades of gray, and then that helps me to determine what colors I'm going to use, because the colors are all spontaneous. And when I work from a negative photograph, what that does is that separates the lights and the darks immediately. So in other words, I'm not concentrating on the picture per se. I'm concentrating more on just what is light and dark, and then that gives me maybe a little truer view of the scene.
The modulation and the movement of the color has all got to flow together, and if it's not done evenly, then it won't flow.
Yeah, I'm at the stage of putting the main body of color on, and it's basically where the whole strength of all the little details are going to ride once that's done, and it's important to try to get that on as even as possible, so all the parts are as a whole. I just used the 2 reds, the 3 blues, and the 2 yellows, but out of all those combinations, there are just hundreds and hundreds of different tones that are possible. So it is pretty exciting, really.
Yeah, I've got some really nice things going on here right now with these leaves. You can see how the red against the green has a real warm and cool balance going on at the same time, and that just gives it integrity. The way it balances itself from cool to warm, warm to cool. It makes it real pleasing to view. See, I notice this little bit of blue that I'm putting on here. I really like that. That's going to tone down eventually, but you can see the interreacting that it's doing with the red. And what's exciting about painting, and I enjoy the most, is as it starts to go on, the colors seem to talk. And you can see this blue is toning down already. I've got a little green in the brush too at the same time, and I'm loading the brush up with different colors as I go along. So, I'm almost using the brush like a palette in some instances, where it's mixing color as I move along. It just sort of happens naturally.
just got a piece of this one, so we're gonna just lay it out, take it and sit right on it.
98 3/4 something. Just in case, I don't know if we'll get that tied into the wall. It'd be good if we do, but we might not be able to either. I'll start a staple right here. Set. Okay, that's good. No more.
This has been a stationary item.
Highlight of the day, watch these sort of.
I want the piece to involve the viewer. I want to try to get some participation out of people that look at my work. This project maybe shows a progression of a positive progression, you know, positive community. Not so much more that it's trying to make a statement of what not to do. I think it's more of what to do, you know, and it just shows some of the probably the happier moments in the history of Cupertino, which I think positive reactions are really where the solutions lie anyway. If people can view it and they don't need to ask and they can just see it, then I think the job's done. And as far as the time goes and the accomplishment, I'm mainly doing this kind of work because I want to. That's why I do it.